Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Gangrel.
Excellent.
Now, how can you not like that laugh? Hey guys, Akariss here. Welcome to a brand new unit analysis featuring our very own Gangrel. And honestly, that says Pledgia's Mad King. Alright, it's Pledgia. You get the point. Back on topic though. So, I'm actually very pleasantly surprised that finally we're getting all these villains. I think there's still more to go, but you know, Ashnard, Gangrel, you know, all we need is like Petrine now, and I'm gonna be a happy man. Like, we're getting a lot of good villains lately, and to be honest, this guy didn't get shafted. I'm gonna go into detail as I always do through this video and let you know what I truly think of Gangrel. He's good. He's a good unit. He has a preference weapon that already makes him stand far apart from a lot of units. But let's start with talking about the stats and the skills. So skills, first of all, or you know, the skills he pretty much comes with is like Panic Ploy, I believe, Chill Attack. We'll see that in a moment, but that's not so important. The preference weapon is worth talking about, and it gives 3 res, kind of like Kronya's weapon, which Athame had 3 res as well. But the thing with this one is, if penalty's active on the foe, he just gets 4 to all stats. It may seem conditional, but realistically, daggers almost always have this active because of the dagger debuffs that they apply anyways. Defense -7, res -7 is pretty much always done by them anyways. And if you do pair them up with the right allies, you'll likely always have those penalties active on the enemy anyways. So very good dagger. Condition is pretty much always met. I feel like rarely would be the case unless you run into Restore or Harsh Command Plus, which will give him some problems, but it would give a lot of other dagger units the same problems. So honestly, good unit. The additional part wasn't even really like necessary, but they actually decided to give him 20% of his res in true damage as well, which is only mitigated by stuff like Close Call, Repel, or Bike. So honestly, with that being there and he just getting just a flat out extra 20% damage based on his decent res is nice icing on the cake. Now, his stat spread may not look that good on a first impression, but honestly, that HP stat is good. I would likely compare him closest to someone like Chad. I think his stat spread is a couple points here and there compared to Chad, but HP is actually a very important stat nowadays. Considering that buildings like Panic Man or Tactics Room, if you run into these and you use Gangrel as a carry, he needs to be able to dodge this stuff. He needs to be able to dodge those buildings. That's why units like Kagro are not as good, because of their lower HP, and you will likely encounter these buildings and limit your play options because of them. Gangrel's HP stat, good. Speed stat, important and good. Res stat, synergy with his weapon, super. Attack is just fine. It's not great, but it's not bad either, therefore putting him in a nice place. So just to confirm, if you do happen to fodder him, he has Chill Attack and Panic Play. Panic Play a 4-star, whatever. You already have Garen, you probably already have Volter. There's plenty of Panic Play options. I don't really recommend foddering him because honestly, he's a pretty unique unit. He is good. I don't know if I would necessarily call him better than like Kronya, for instance, or like a Broadleaf, let's say Soth, or a high investment Layla with like Broadleaf or something, because those would definitely be very good options. But the fact that he can use a Broadleaf and have the choice to switch to his preference weapon should Broadleaf not be effective in a future meta is very nice, and also one of the reasons why Kronya is why I consider to be such a good unit. So let's jump into a couple builds and I'll show you exactly why I feel like he will be a decent choice for investment. Remember, he's a GHB, so GHB is less grails to max out. What I'm going to start with is probably the like staple Vantage build, and some things you can interchange. Like, you don't pretty much need Pulse Smoke, you don't need really, you could run Close Foil as an alternative close counter. There's some problems with that, but it's there. What you should notice here is that this is actually triple mythic Gangrel, okay? It's not single, it's not double mythic, So that might be a little bit confusing, but eventually we reach a timeline where people may want to use triple mythic to dodge building HP thresholds. And of course, because if you just have like a bunch of mythics and you want to increase your score, this is important to consider. So 71 is a very nice HP threshold, and his stat spread is good because of that. Moving on, this is actually a double mythic build. Now this is probably more applicable to most people. By refining the weapon, getting some extra HP, and using an HP plus an attack seal, you can actually put him above 71 without having to run that triple mythic setup, and it has good synergy with someone like Tethys, or the Tamari dagger in general, which again we'll discuss in a little bit with some teammates that you likely will want to consider using along with him. Double mythic, again, Altina and Naga currently are the mythics and their blessings and buffs applied here. Moving on, we have a defense version of Gangrel. Now, he may not look that impressive on, like, just by looking at this, he might not look that impressive to you, but you got to consider a couple of things. Because of his high HP, he's at the near top of an IP chain, and most nukes at the higher end of an IP chain, those that don't receive infantry pulses that often, tend to be really, like, weak, like flat in damage. But because his weapon gives him true damage, a bunch of stats, and has innate synergy with stuff like Mirror Impact, makes him actually pretty good at doing decent amount of damage, which was always kind of a problem with the units that would be at the higher end of an IP chain. So he provides infantry pulse, and he gives off some decent amount of damage because of his pretty much high bulk and true damage coming from the Levin dagger. So very solid in this regard. Now stuff like Dark Shrine, Panic Manor, Tactics Room even, schools and such, enable his dagger pretty easily. So he again gets a bunch of stats and is a decent option to consider for AR defense. Moving on, we have what I would consider his weakest role, and you probably shouldn't use him in this regard, is a arena build. Now unfortunately he's 166 stats total, and that means he doesn't reach 170. Therefore his optimal build uses C dual infantry, which is bad, very bad, and if you don't run it then you're pretty much limiting yourself. So I don't really recommend this, but I guess you could do it. Don't do it, but it's something to, I guess, mention for the sake of mentioning it. Gangrel, good place in AR, probably a very good PvE unit as well, but PvE is pretty easy, so again, not worth too much to talk about. Now I will focus mainly on the close counter vantage aspect of him for AR offense. He doesn't seem like the right type of unit to use for tanking. He probably can, but again, vantage is definitely his sweet spot. You got to consider a couple of friends, some allies that you want to bring in with him, and you will see them right now. Boom. All right, so there they are on the left. These are units I would highly recommend. Definitely Tethys. Tethys with Tamari, really good. All these units here are without merges and without... they have blessings. Sorry, Altina and Naga are blessed on all of them, but they are not merged other than the second Tethys build there. Just to compare a max invested Tethys versus one that isn't, because there is a bit of a difference there. Max invested can run like panic support and activates that Tamari far easier. Remember, Tamari hits attack and speed, dagger debuffs are defense and res. You pretty much have full debuffs on all stats that way. Stuff like attack play is obviously interchangeable. Wings of Mercy is good synergy for dancers. Layla is a good support partner with invested like Disarm Trap plus Pulse Smoke if you don't have it. Is really good to set them up as well, get an easy snipe that way. Aversa, if you don't really have Tamari or you don't have Tethys, then Aversa is also a solid companion. Maybe you want to run tactics buffs and your bonus unit is enforcing infantry and you can't run Tethys, then Aversa is a good option there as well. Finally, I want to talk about the new Mirabilis. Mira is a very good partner as well for Gangrel because her weapon and her dance are pretty much enablers for the whole panic system. So if she chooses to dance Gangrel, or anyone really on the team, there's almost a guaranteed way that units will get debuffed and Gangrel gets enabled by that, and his weapon has some very nice synergy that way. So honestly, I would conclude he's pretty good. He's pretty good, and if you like him, definitely invest and you'll get something out of him. However, consider that there are still good Grail options. Like, honestly, we have Chronia, who's still very solid, so if you have Chronia copies, Chronia is still really good. I would still give Chronia a little bit of an edge over him when it in terms of like comparing. I'd say in terms of Broadleaf though, he's probably the best Broadleaf user currently in the game, with maybe Layla being maybe slightly better in some ways, mostly the attack version. But when it comes to just the flexibility between 11 Dagger and Broadleaf and being able to change that should the meta shift one way or another, like if we just have a bunch of buildings or skills that just remove debuffs, for instance, then, you know, Broadleaf will suffer a lot, and therefore he can at least run 11 Dagger build, which still gives him a lot of value because his weapon gives him res true damage plus all the stats, and you know, he's pretty good. He's pretty good setup for that. So yeah, would think you should use him if you like him. Not necessarily the best option, but not bad by any means. So with that being said, guys, let me know what you think of Gangrel below. What other villains are you waiting for? I mean, at this point, I'm pretty much waiting for like Petrine or Brigand Boss. Like, we're getting a lot of the good stuff in Heroes now. So yeah, let me know what you think. Give the video a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Much love. Peace.